The year is 2021. COVID has ravaged both the global population and, more importantly, the concept of paper Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game events. Nerds everywhere are chomping at the bit for a chance to get in a fistfight about which Subterra behemoth is the sexiest. And while the remote duel extravaganzas have been a nice alternative to not playing Yu-Gi-Oh! At all, they obviously don't compare to flesh and blood TCG. I think I speak for everyone when I say I cannot wait for COVID to end and Yu-Gi-Oh! To begin again. Unfortunately, a team is only as strong as its weakest member, which means the global fight against coronavirus is only as strong as Florida.
If I get corona, I get corona. At the end of the day, I'm not going to let it stop me from partying.
Sorry to any Floridians watching this, but, you know.
We're just living for the moment.
To give us something to look forward to, Konami announced the Remote Duel YCS, a true YCS experience from the comfort of your parents' basement. Turnout was incredible, which presented some unique problems. At everyone, we need a server boost here to have the better video quality. Whoever gives a server boost will get 2 OTS packs added to his account. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Konami's just a small indie company after all. A couple of days before the event, things got hairier. Since April of 2020, a proposed rule revision has been in place that impacts some corner case but relevant rulings. Since there's been no pay-per-play, there hasn't been a chance to codify these rules, and every online event has begun with the reassurance that we'll be following them. Except for this one.
And we will not be using the rules revision you may be familiar with.
This was posted in the EU server, then the NA server walked it back, and then the EU server walked it back, but not before every single player had a collective heart attack. A smart man bases his Yu-Gi-Oh! Rulings on his thoughts, but a wise one changes them depending on which event they are judging. There were some other rules. Oddities.
You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
I'm not going to get into them here because Distant Coder is making a video about it as we speak, but these are very wrong. So how did the event go? Well, it was a YCS. It turns out trying to corral 1,800 Yu-Gi-Oh! Players through Discord is easier said than done, and as a result there were massive delays in pretty much every single server. The Latin American Discord server had a public lobby, and someone used it to stream the new Scooby-Doo movie in between rounds. There was a fair share of nonsense. Ryan Levine, a favorite to go all the way, locked himself out of his bedroom between rounds 2 and 3 and ended up getting a game loss after failing to pick the lock. He eventually went with the, War Rock solution. Rounds were rough as well. Unstable internet connections and 500 people all streaming in the same Discord at the same time produced game states like this one. Name every card here. Is that a token, maybe? I wish I could say I had a really fun time, but, honestly, I didn't. I enjoyed early remote duels because of the novelty, and there are some pluses to playing at home. You can eat between rounds, you can play with your dog, you can grab a nap while your Dragon Link opponent combos off. But nothing will replace the social aspect of chilling with friends and getting salty about bad beats, and nowhere was this more apparent than this pseudo-YCS. Oh, one final note, the judges who staffed this event were stronger than God and braver than every United States Marine. So how did I do? Well, the title is not clickbait. I did go undefeated. However, I went 4-0-4 with Sky Striker Outlich. This is not a joke. That got me 16 match points, which was enough to make it into day 2, but not enough to make it into the top 32, even if I won every single game afterwards. So I conceded my first match on Sunday and got brunch. I know how this looks. I don't know how to reassure everyone that I didn't do anything maliciously, except to let you know that from about round 3 onwards, I basically had a judge glued to my side the entire event. I played at a reasonable speed, and so did all of my opponents. No one ever asked me to go faster, and I had to hurry along an opponent once. I actually never even activated Kaina's life gain effect at all this entire weekend. This is just kinda how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is now, unfortunately. Combo decks take 15 minutes to play their first turn, and control decks take 30 minutes to win a game. My hope is that this is like an internet thing, that once in-person play resumes, there's going to be less awkward pauses and video buffering, but I fear that the cause of this issue has more to do with combo decks that are endlessly repeatable like Drytron, and control decks that can snowball one card into a glacially slow lurch to victory like Sky Striker. I mean, we can account for a lot as players, but at some point, something's got to give from Konami, too. Whether it's keeping game extenders behind ban lists, or changing design principles entirely. Okay, now let me show you the deck I used to 404 this tournament. So here's the list. A quick disclaimer before we get started. I would not recommend this for competitive play. I know that's a weird thing to say on an undefeated profile, but while there are some neat synergies between Sky Striker and Eldritch is just so poorly positioned right now. I think a lot of the reason I tied as much as I did is because not only does Lich have inherent weaknesses, it also really fails to close out games. So with that, let's get into the profile. We've got 3 copies of Sky Striker Ace Ray, and unfortunately you aren't guaranteed a Sky Striker every game because we are not playing Rose. Instead, we are playing Eldritch, the Golden Lord, and that is the end of our monster lineup. Do not do this. Hand traps are extremely good this format, and I was constantly finding myself wishing I was maining them. After that are the spells. We've got Engage. Put this card back to 0. It's not like broken, but it does enable really unfun games, and I would prefer that that doesn't happen. We've got 2 copies of Area Zero and 1 copy of Terraforming, pretty standard, I believe. Next, we've got 3 copies of Widow Anchor. This card's really expensive now for some reason. Thankfully, I had them from a couple of years ago when this deck was meta. I'm going to go for a Shark Cannon next. I was playing 2 of them and 1 copy of Afterburner, which I followed up with a multi-roll and a Hornet Drones, and that is the extent of my Sky Striker spells. We're also playing 3 copies of Cursed Eldland, a couple of neat interactions you can do with this, popping it with multi-roll, with Area Zero, etc. in order to proc it on the first turn like you used to be able to do with Drident, may she rest in peace. 2 Foolish Burial Goods. This is stolen directly from Elise's profile, and I see why she was playing it. This card is bonkers. You can use it to send a whole bunch of really cool stuff, either Engage if you don't have a way to access it on your first turn, which you routinely don't without Hayate attacking, or stuff that you just want to cycle with a Kagari, not necessarily an Engage, to put yourself under a Drolan lock, just a way to get like a Widow Anchor into rotation. Or if you already have all the Sky Striker stuff that you want, or you know they're not going to be super online, you can use it to kickstart the Eldritch half of your deck as well. Very, very good, and I did board out of it a lot, which I regretted. We're on Reinforcement of the Army as well, followed by 3 Pot of Prosperity. But Joseph, you're drawing off of Engage. Yeah, eventually. It actually matters a lot that we get to see exactly the card we need on the first turn and then can Engage for 1 million the second turn. I always did 6 with this. That was probably a mistake, but we're not normal Sky Striker, and unfortunately that means we are going to have to probably play a little fast and loose with our extra deck. We're not likely to see what we need in our top 3 every game. And then Forbidden Droplet. Again, don't do what I did with monsters. This card was crazy for me all weekend, of course, but would have been a lot better if I was playing hand traps and could send monster more consistently. For traps, we're on 3 Scarlet Sanguine, no surprises there. 3 copies of Conquistador of the Golden Land. I might have shaved this to 2 and gone for 3 copies of Wakera, which I played 2 of. I always felt like I didn't need more Golden Lands that I was playing, but I probably wanted a different variant of them. And thankfully, I was playing a single hand trap, Infinite Impermanence, which came up quite frequently. In the extra deck, there's not too much that's exciting. I was playing 3 copies of Shizuku, 3 copies of Hayate. I probably could have gotten away with 1 fewer of this card, but whatever. I just banished it off of Prosperity most of the time as well. 3 copies of Kagari. Really not okay that this card is at 3 at the same time as Engage is legal. 1 copy of Zeke, which apparently you can summon up a Golden Master. And 1 copy of Kaina. While I didn't ever use her life gain effect, I routinely used the battle stopping one. I was also playing 1 Link Spider to get Conquistadors off my side of the field, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and 1 Access Code Talker. This came up as a way to do a lot of damage as we were going into time, and that happened once, so I'm glad I ended up playing it. Finally, in the side deck, I had 3 copies of Nibiru. This card was terrible, but only because I kept playing against the best Drytron players in the universe, who would always open Orange Light. 3 copies of Ash Blossom. This definitely should have been in the main. Huge oversight. 3 copies of Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion also should have been in the main. 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. This came in quite frequently alongside Harpy's Feather Duster. Turns out that Harpy's Feather Duster should also not be legal. And 3 Evenly Matcheds, probably my biggest punt in the side deck. This didn't come in at all, and there were very few matches in which I felt like I really wanted it. So that's the list. Nothing too spicy or interesting, just normal heads-up bad deck building. So that's that. A decent event and an extremely memeable bookend to remote play. See you all when events are back.